Chad, there's two other things. There's some lingering votes that is it XUSD
Oh, yes.
and then there's the Tor anchor pools. And
Yeah.
seems like nobody cares. No one's like doing anything, but they seem pretty like kind of straightforward. Like we should just do them. Like, is there any reason not to do them?
Yeah,
Um,
there's not really a strong, at least from my perspective, there's not a strong reason not to do them, at least not that I can think of, nor does anybody conveyed an objection to these things. I think it's just like, there's always a problem in it, any decentralized system, like a DAO or whatever, of like voter turnout, right? Like if you look at any DAO in Ethereum land, voting is like, it's high if it's 12%. Like if you're at 12%, you're like extremely doing well. And it's a question about like how we want to handle this within the community. Like we've had conversations recently, internal within the team of actually like having some sort of either like a carrot or a stick for people to vote, on these ADRs or these, things we want people to vote on, to get the turnout to be faster or more consistent or whatever. And we have like right now, there's a bunch more like ADRs to vote on. Like
yeah.
like there's even just like the reserve max cap, right? Which is one thing you've been talking about for a while, Kenton. Like that's still kind of waiting, and there's like more. I think there's more coming too. And so like we're kind of being throttled as a development team in terms of our ability to get these things out the door and like functional and get the benefit of all this work we put in to make these things work. And whether that be like adding Monero, whether that be ADR 26, ADR 27, ADR 28, the guy USK or whatever that one was, the tours, the this, the that. It's a lot, to be fair, and maybe there's something we need to change to make it easier for nodes to vote or something, or maybe the nodes don't vote and we change it so the bond providers are the ones that actually vote. And maybe we get worse turnout in that scenario versus better
No,
turnout.
no
But
offense to my BPs, but I think it's got to go through the node operator.
yeah,
Um,
that's fair.
um, but uh, I think there should be a stick. And I've been saying this for a while. There should be a penalty. So like it's either you have to vote. You have to say like you don't actually have to make a decision, but at least there should be an option to say I'm aware of the vote, right? I'm thinking about it. So either you vote or you signal you're aware.
Mm,
And that way we know this node is alive, it's active, it is participating, and fine. You need time to think, do your thing, no problem.
mm-hmm.
But because that's my concern. Like, I think we have genuinely good voter turnout because people are engaged. People care about THORChain. They want it to succeed. But as we grow and get bigger and more decentralized, governance is going to be a nightmare. Imagine doing this. Everyone wants hundreds of nodes. It is going to be really hard to wrangle everyone. So there's got to be some uh, 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 consequence if you're not participating in governance because you hold back the rest of the protocol.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm worried that people are just on holidays and just not even paying attention. Like how many times have we seen a node basically go down? It's like just screwing things up for weeks because the guy's just literally not paying attention.
Yeah.
And so
Yep. We've seen
they,
that.
they need to be penalized for not paying attention. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, one of the sticks we talked about internally, and there's a bunch of different ways you could go at it, but you could give slash points in some scenarios. We could do like a churn. We select somebody that hasn't voted, like whoever has made the least amount of votes, right? It's like you get selected to be churned out, you know, or when you get churned back in, you have to make your votes before you churn in, right? So if you get churned out because you didn't vote, you're not going to be able to churn back in until you do vote, and so it kind of forces you to vote at that time, right? There's probably 50 different ways we
that's
could
not
kind of
bad.
like,
Yeah.
like we could do it. The way that I was thinking about if you want to go stick methodology is that, or you could do like a cutting of their rewards, because they didn't vote. You get 10% less or some number or something. Part of the problem though is that you have to establish within the protocol of like which things are like required voting, right? Which memirs, or maybe like anything with an ADR in the memir, like by default is required voting or whatever, right? But we don't want required voting for like, should we halt Doge
Right.
trading, for example. Like
Yeah.
you don't want everybody voting on this. We just want a few people to vote, which is usually like either the team or nodes or like whatever the hell it is, to just vote, 3 or 4 nodes to vote to halt trading and then fix the problem. And then those 4 nodes, go back and resume the trading. So you have to figure out a way to like define which ones, and maybe you could do this by like, if it hits 1/3 plus 1 or greater, then it becomes required voting, right? Like if enough people voted on this thing, like a 1/3 of it, now it becomes required and everybody has to vote, or whatever, right? And if you don't vote, then you run the risk of being churned out in the next churn, and you won't be able to turn back in until you cast your vote to get back in. Maybe that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's like 50 different ways we could kind of cut this, and I'm not sure any one idea is necessarily a lot better than the other, but something rational, reasonable, could make sense.
I like your churn out idea a lot because if you're not making money, that is the greatest, incentive right there. You're out of the network because you did not vote. You're not making money. Your BPs are not
Yeah.
going to be making money, right? So that's
Yeah.
pressure from the BPs as well.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think that is
exactly.
a healthy. I think it's very
Yeah.
healthy.
In the end, like the protocol wants engaged nodes, right? Not just to vote, but also to protect the protocol,
Yeah,
right? If
exactly.
there
It's
was
not about want, we need.
we want every node operator to be a professional node operator, and the income
Yes.
should be there to make it worth your time, right? In terms of your compensation. And if there's an attack on the protocol, there's some malicious, activity that's going to drain all the funds or something like this, you got to be readily available to do like a make pause, right? As much as you possibly can as a human, right? Like you can't, I don't expect everybody to be like on their keyboard, like 24/7, staring at a fucking screen. Like that's obviously ridiculous. But like we want people to be, highly engaged and involved in voting and be aware of what you're voting in. And you don't vote just because I tell you that my opinion is to vote this way, and you do your own research and you come to your own conclusions. You can ask whatever questions you want to ask, and all that kind of stuff, and just have like better quality of voting too, just in that context as well. So if the perspective of the protocol, it's like we want very engaged, operators so that can vote and we can protect the protocol more effectively and these kind of things, then kicking people out because they're not, participating in an active kind of way is somewhat of a rational perspective. At least that will just foster people to be more aware and be more on top of, every ADR vote that the devs and the community are throwing out there.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I think that nails it. I mean, someone can correct us if we're wrong if you have another idea, but if you turn a node out for not responding, I think that is a perfect incentive for the reasons we described. So I love that idea. I think that's great. I can't find
Could
flaw
that
with that.
would that maybe I'm just trying to think that through. Let's say if enough, but then we get so many nodes churning out. Let's say we
Yeah,
get
it would
20% of the
only be
nodes
one.
churn
It would
out.
only be
That
one node churning out per turn. It wouldn't be everybody that
Okay.
has not
Yeah,
voted.
that's that's
okay.
important.
That would be
Yes.
too
Yeah, 'cause we
important. And you can
we
make an
don't.
argument that like once we get to a 2/3 majority, even if you didn't vote, like we're not going to kick you at that point because the
Yeah,
protocol
of
is able
course.
to achieve what it's able to. Well,
Yeah.
it got to the result it wanted to get, even when you didn't participate. Although if there is another vote that's happening that didn't get to consensus, and it says, oh, you didn't vote in this one, and you didn't vote in this one, and you didn't vote on this one. Okay, you didn't make 3 votes, and therefore you're kind of, high up on the list, and somebody who didn't make 1 is lower on the list. And so the third person who didn't vote 3 times is the one person that's going to get kicked out on this particular churn, and because you are consistently not voting rather than you didn't vote 1 time because you were on vacation, or something like this.
You would need a
The
buffer time too for nodes and BPs to discuss and deliberate a topic before you
Yeah, absolutely.
initiated that behavior, right? Like maybe a
We can do
couple
a
turn
yeah,
cycles,
we can
something
do
like that.
something like that. Yeah, I don't
And
know what it would be, but
that's why I think you gotta have at least an option for, I acknowledge the vote, but I haven't voted
Abstain.
yet type
Abstain.
yeah,
Yeah.
abstaining for now, whatever. At least you're signaling that you're aware, right? Um, but
yeah.
yeah, I don't know, the churning out thing, at first I was good, but now I'm thinking, well, maybe it's a bit harsh, and, like, the last thing we want is all these nodes. The more nodes we have, the better. Um, and,
Uh,
is a vote really that crucial to kick several nodes out? Because then we lose that economic security,
Wait,
um,
it churns 1 out per
every
turn.
churn.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
per turn.
And then hopefully that they're out, so they turn back in because hopefully they would actually cast a vote at that point and say, okay, I support this or don't. Or either that, or the voting had completed on that ADR to hit that
What
67%, and therefore it's already satisfied. Therefore, the fact that you didn't vote allows you to come back in because it's already been satisfied, or it's already been resolved, from a voting perspective.
what if
So
we
you would
leave
come
them
right back
in
in.
to at least we maintain the security, but we just take all their yield away or some portion of the yield? So at least the
Yeah,
node is still there providing security. They're just not getting paid for it anymore.
you could do that, and you just basically would be slashing them every block more or less, or every
Yeah.
2 blocks to be more precise, because a slash is, I think it's like 2 blocks of revenue. So you're like cutting into your profits.
Then that way
So
when they
you
go to then they're like, "Oh, shoot," then they go vote. They're still in. They don't have to wait 3 days to get turned back in. "Okay, I got my vote going. The slashes go away. I'm still in the network. Everything's okay." 'Cause I
yeah,
mean, we're all human, right? We get busy. We lose track of time, whatever, right? And so, if somebody just slips up and now they have to wait 3 days to fix, like, that might be a bit harsh.
possibly.
Um,
Like I said, there's like a
yeah,
bunch of different ways you could approach this, and I'm sure every person has a slightly different perspective on it.
yeah,
And they're all valid. They're all like reasonable ideas or reasonable approaches. And how much different is one versus the other?
yeah.
Like,
Could we make it if there's an ADR vote that it's just so obvious, like, maybe like to Kenton's point, like they may not have known for some whatever reason. Things happen, they're not a bad person, they're not lazy or nothing, just for whatever reason slips through the cracks. Is there a way whenever there's a new ADR proposal on THORChain becomes an official thing that there's like some sort of warning or signal or something that just says, hey, pressing need, this must be addressed, like this needs to be addressed? I don't know how that works, because I know everyone has their own
we
build, their own
we
configurations for nodes.
we kind of have that a little bit already. Nine Realms had an API endpoint that would be like active voting. So when you did like make status on your node, it would just like give you like a general printout of like the status of your infrastructure, and if the blocks are behind or not, or like whatever, like how many slashes you have, and just various like kind of overall information. It would actually have a list at the bottom saying like, here's all the things you haven't voted on yet. And then you could say, oh, okay, I got to vote on this one, this one, this one, or whatever those are. And that it kind of helped for a while back, and like a few years ago. Like it actually did help. We haven't like used it that much in the last like year or two. Maybe we can start using that little mechanism again. I don't know, but
Because that
we
would
are.
address Kenton's concern. There'd be no, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Chad. There'd be no excuse that they would not notice that there was some sort of reliable infrastructure that just immediately signals when there's a new vote. Like it's always, yeah, you know what I
Well, we
mean?
kind
Like
of
I don't,
have that now with a Thor node mainnet announcement channel in Discord / Telegram.
yeah.
And that's the way we tell people that there's a vote to begin with. And everybody who runs who runs a node or operates a node should be, be very closely tied to that channel, if not to make votes, but also to be aware that there's some sort of issue, either because we need to reset the Bifrost cache on these specific 10 nodes in order to finish the Solana trade that's currently stuck, or because there's an exploit that we're aware of, and we need to pause trading because of there's an ability to extract funds. Like that's our kind of alerting channel that every node operator should be tied to the hip to that channel.